Hello, neighbors, and welcome back to the neighborhood. I am Squealer D, and I am back again. And this time, neighbors, it is Friday. I have to actually look and make sure it's Friday. Sometimes I feel like it's Thursday, guys. I've been waiting for this day all day or all week. So now I feel like it might not be the day, but it is. It's Friday, my friends. And we are back in the money. And we are learning today about the U.S. debt ceiling because it's Friday, and hopefully by the time we come back Monday, it will be solved, but most likely it won't. So what we're going to do is read about the definition, the history, the pros, the cons, and the clashes. And then I have some other very interesting details about it. So guys, excuse me if I look real puffy and tired. I said I got a new espresso machine. I don't know if you caught that episode, but I got a new espresso machine. And yesterday was the first time using it. And my friends, I had 4 espressos yesterday. And I could not sleep until maybe like 2:30 in the morning. And now I am tired and I am paying for it. So when you get a new espresso machine, sorry guys, I'm trying to set up our chat so I don't miss anybody when they come in. I always have the chat on my cell phone so that I can see you guys when you bop in. I try to have it up on the computer, but OBS stays on top, and for some reason, the live chat always goes away. Anyway, guys, super tired because I had a bunch of espresso. Now today, I'm going to have a bunch more espresso. I got to try out the espresso machine. What am I going to do? So I will tell you what, though. Yesterday, out of 4 of those espressos, 2 of them, yes, half, was better than any espresso I've ever had, guys. Better than Starbucks, better than Dutch Brothers, better than anybody I've ever had coffee from. And I am a coffee person. So get yourself an espresso maker. But, my friends, you have to learn how to use it. Just like we're learning how to use the stock market, you have to learn how to pull the espresso shots so that you could get wonderful, tasty coffee. Anyway, back to the money. Guys, if this is your very first episode that you are watching, welcome. You belong here. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could be a little child or an old person. It does not matter. We can learn about money. The stock market has been here since way back in the 1800s, guys, way before any of us. So we owe it to ourselves, our children, and the future of this country to learn about money. Why? Because this world and this country does not work on people. It used to run on people, guys. The more people you knew, the better you could do in a business with people. Your life was okay, but that's not how it is anymore. Now it's money, and we have AIs, and AIs make money, and we have to be responsible. So the responsible thing to do, if you can't beat them and make the world about people, then you have to join them in the money. So here we are joining them. If you are just joining, there is a playlist in my YouTube, guys. It is called Stock Market Learning. This is day number 38. That means there are at least 37 previous videos for you to watch. They're all about 30 minutes to an hour long. I try to keep them pretty short so you can catch up if you do get behind. And once you've understood and heard all of these things, the stock market, learning how to trade is going to be easy for us, guys. So today we talk about the debt ceiling because, like I said, it matters. It's happening right now. It actually happened in 2008 when Donald Trump was president. It happened in 2013 when Barack Obama was president. It happened in George W. Bush's tenure. The older George W. Bush, I believe, or the younger one I can't remember, one of the Bushes. It also happened during, George Clinton. Bill Clinton, guys. Bill Clinton. I know his name. I call that man George Clinton. Yes, George Clinton. Now, Bill Clinton also had a shutdown. All of those people had a shutdown because they couldn't agree on raising the debt ceiling. So we're going to read about that today. And then we are going to check our stocks that we bought yesterday on Stock Simulator. That is also in the playlist, my friends. So, what is the debt ceiling? This is by Tim Smith. Look at him. He's got 20 plus years experience in financial services, both as a writer and as a trader. He's a multi-talented guy. Erica's pretty. Look at her. She's a nice looking gal. And Yolette always looks so young to me in her picture. Okay. It's like I know these people. What is the debt ceiling? The debt ceiling is the maximum amount of money that the United States can borrow cumulatively by issuing bonds. The debt ceiling was created under the Second Liberty Bond Act of 1917. Hey, that's kind of curious that the debt ceiling was created after the Buttonwood Agreement in 1892 when they secured their money on the stock market, and is also known as the debt limit or statutory debt limit. If the U.S. government, and you want to know why I say that is curious? Because in 1892, when they signed the Buttonwood Agreement, they signed the Buttonwood Agreement so that the 21 richest people wouldn't keep getting ripped off in the stock market. They made an actual stock market called the New York Stock Exchange. They signed an agreement saying that people wouldn't do shoddy things and they would have rules so that nobody would get ripped off and lose their money. And then in 1917, they made the debt limit because, guys, the debt limit is the amount of money from bonds, right? Who is invested in bonds? The richest people. So if in 1892, they made stock market rules so that they wouldn't lose their money on the stock market, they also turned around and made the Liberty Bond Act so that they wouldn't get ripped off on bonds. Because if the government is irresponsible with its money and it collectively keeps issuing bonds but can't pay them back, then who doesn't get paid back, guys? The rich people. So these are all things in place so that rich people can continue to make money and stay rich without losing their money to an act that, I don't know, that they can't control, I guess. That's a good way to say it. So if the U.S. government national debt levels bump up against the ceiling, then the Treasury Department must resort to other extraordinary measures to pay government obligations and expenditures until the ceiling is raised again. So the debt in our country, guys, is those bonds. People buy them so that we can do things like fix roads and whatever other government money that they need. War. They make bonds for war, for infrastructure. And the rich people with money buy these bonds, invest in them, and they have to be paid back. But also what has to be paid is our social services, like Social Security, guys. This is money that we have paid into. I have been paying into Social Security since I was 14 years old. That's right. They take money out of your check directly into Social Security. I'm 40 years old now, guys. So almost for 30 years, I've been paying into a fund that some people, when they retire, they won't get it. There won't be enough, guys. And that debt, they call it debt, but is their fiscal responsibility is not debt. You cannot, if you go into having children by calling them debt, you're probably not going to have too much fun rearing your children. But if you look at your children as investments, you'll probably look at it a little bit better. So we need to look at our Social Security as an investment. We invested into that money. It is not a debt that the country gives to us. It is an actual thing that we earned. So therefore, when the debt ceiling isn't reached, guys, Social Security, something that we paid into, that goes away. They can't pay that. That's what this money is for. That's why it matters. Because I am sure that you know somebody that is on Social Security. I am sure that you know somebody that works for the U.S. government, like the military. In the military, if the government shuts down, they do not get paid. Could you imagine going to work every day at a military base, in fatigues, in your uniform, guys, completely uniformed up and not getting paid? Could you imagine the police doing that? Could you imagine a police officer getting dressed up, driving around town and not getting paid? That's what happens when the debt ceiling is hit. So that is why it matters, because I know you know a military person and I know you know somebody on Social Security. So I know that it matters to you. We just don't know a lot about it because these rules, they were made up a long time ago. So it is very Yes. T. Cal, I just saw you come in. I was talking so hard I didn't even notice. Welcome, friend. Yes, hit that like button, everybody. Hit that like button if you want to hit the debt ceiling. Hit the like button if you don't want us to hit the debt ceiling. Hit the like button if you don't even care if we hit the debt ceiling. You guys, I lived 40 years of my life and I never once cared about the debt ceiling. When Donald Trump went right through the debt ceiling because he wanted to fund his wall, remember the Mexico wall? I was like, who cares? We should care, guys. We got to care. So we're going to read this and then we're going to care. And then, like I said, we're going to start talking about, yes, we have to drop these financial gems so that we don't have to work all night. Okay? I'm trying to get you out of that all night working, TKL. Have a good sleep, though. I know you worked all night long. Today is tea, guys, because I drank so much espresso yesterday and I don't know how to use the espresso machine. So here we go, guys. If the U.S. government national debt levels bump up against the ceiling, then the Treasury Department must resort to other extraordinary measures to pay the obligations. The debt ceiling has been raised or suspended numerous times over the years to avoid the worst-case scenario, a default by the U.S. government on its debt. The debt ceiling is the maximum amount that the U.S. government can borrow by issuing bonds. The Treasury Department must find other ways to pay expenses when the debt ceiling is reached. Otherwise, there's risk that the U.S. will default on its debt. The debt ceiling has been raised or suspended several times to avoid the risk of default. There have been a number of showdowns over the debt ceiling, some of which have led to government shutdowns. 35 days Donald Trump had the government shut down. Shutdowns are the result of conflict between the White House and Congress, with the debt ceiling used as leverage to push budgetary agendas. So our military, who gets paid by this money, and our Social Security, who you invested in, you and me and our grandparents and our parents all invested into Social Security, and they count on that money to live. And our Congress and our White House, who, guys, they're still going to be in Congress and they're still going to be in the White House when this is over. They're using that as leverage to push their agendas. I don't understand why we let them still work for us. Congress had free reign over the country's finances before the debt ceiling was created. In 1917, the debt ceiling was created during World War I to make the federal government fiscally responsible. Over time, the debt, and this means, guys, what this means, fiscally responsible, this means that Congress used to be able to do whatever they wanted. If we were going to go to war, they could make the bonds and create it to go to war. But in 1917, these rich people who they're not the government, guys, Barclays, those people that signed the Buttonwood Agreement, they are not the government, or they weren't at the time. So they created this so that Congress couldn't just make a bunch of bonds and they wouldn't get paid for them. They had to make sure that our GDP, our gross debt, whatever our GDP was, what is it? I can't even think of it right now. When I'm trying to think of something else, I can't think of word meanings. So the gross domestic product is an estimate of how much our country makes, right? So if that doesn't cover our debt, then we can't afford our debt, right? If you make $500, but your debt is $1,000, then you went over, right? You ran right through that debt ceiling of your life. Well, these rich people that signed the Buttonwood Agreement that have all this money, they said, oh, no, we're not letting these Congress people go over the GDP because then we're not going to get paid back. So if we make a ceiling and they have to prove and pray and give good thoughts and hope and wish that we'll pass it, they'll be more responsible. We're not more responsible, guys. All it allows us to do is manipulate the stock market. And you'll see how that happens because whenever we have a shutdown, the stock market soars afterwards. I wonder why. You guys, it's always rich people keeping their money. Just remember it like that. And we want to be the rich people keeping our money. We're tired of being on the other end. And the problem is, guys, they keep us on the other end with knowledge. Okay? If you don't have the knowledge, you can't go to the other end. They don't want you down there. You guys know how a teeter-totter works. If we all go down to the rich side, there won't be anybody on the poor side to lift us back up, right? We'll be down at the bottom. Poor people will become the bottom if all, or rich people will become the bottom if all people become rich. Just, it is what it is, guys. Everybody can't be rich. I say that every time. So if everybody can't be rich, then I want to be rich. I'm tired of being on the poor side. And we all should be, because we didn't put ourselves here. I didn't ask to be born on the poor side of the teeter-totter. I didn't ask to have 2 back surgeries before 40 years old. People don't ask for their lives. So therefore, we should be able to do things to get away from our life. And we can. It's just very, very hard, guys. So, over time, the debt ceiling has been raised whenever the United States has approached the limit. By hitting the limit and failing to pay interest payments to bondholders, the United States would be in default, lowering its credit rating and increasing the cost of its debt. And we have to remember that these bondholders, guys, Barclays is the biggest bank in where? UK, not here. So, these bondholders, if we don't pay them, they're going to knock our credit score down. Just like your credit score when you log on to Credit Sesame. If United States logged on to Credit Sesame right now, it would say, oh man, you guys are getting real close. You're getting real close. And things would start looking bumpy. I wouldn't be surprised if another country's credit rating system, like Moody's or whatever from another country though, if they lowered our credit rating just because we keep doing this. I would. If I gave out credit rating scores, I would lower the United States credit rating simply because they allow themselves to get close to the ceiling. Why would you even allow yourself to get close to the ceiling? Why aren't we making more money? Why don't we have an income stream to fix our debt? That's how you get out of debt, right? They tell you that. If you get a credit card, what do you have to do? You pay it off, right? That's what we have to do. But we're not. You know why? Because it doesn't make money and sense for the rich people. Keeping us in debt keeps us working. If we were out of debt in the United States, how many people would be free to get credit and do things that their heart desired? By keeping the system in a debt system, which our Fed does, our Federal Reserve is based on a debt system. And by keeping us in debt with a debt mentality, we have the workers mentality, guys. People that don't have debt, you know what they become? Artists, creators. You see it all the time. Rich people, where do they get to go work? In the arts and sciences, right? Where do poor people get to go work? At the local diner, at the local warehouse, at the local Amazon, at the local grocery store, right? That's where poor people get to go work. They don't get to, and it's because of this slave mentality. We have to pay for our rent. Rich people are born into houses that are already paid for. Real estate that have been paid since 1892 when the Buttonwood Agreement was signed. Therefore, we are not them. We just have to do what they do. And it's way harder for us. And it's not fair. And you'd be like, well, I didn't have any bootstraps. None of us have bootstraps down here. You know what you have to do? When you don't have bootstraps, you pull up your panties or your panties or your pantaloons or your underwears, whatever you call them. That's what you raise up. You pull them up and you just get on with your day and you learn. Because when you learn, then you can compete with those rich people. They're learned, guys. They know this stuff. They're born with money in their hand. Some of you have never even had money, and that's okay. But you know what you need to get in order to get that money? Right here, guys, smarts. So, there has been controversy over whether the debt ceiling is constitutional. According to the 14th Amendment of the Constitution, the validity of the public debt of the United States authorized by law shall not be questioned. The majority of democratic countries do not have a debt ceiling, making the United States one of the few exceptions. I wonder why we have a debt limit, guys. The approximate amount of the U.S. debt ceiling as set by Congress to vote on December 15, 2021 and signed into law by President Biden on December 16 the same year, the sum represents a $2.5 trillion increase in the ceiling. So we raised the debt ceiling by $2.5 trillion in 2021. That's right. Advantages. So see here, Some people fight that it's not even constitutional, guys. It says in our Constitution, the problem with our Constitution, guys, is it wasn't made for the money system. The money system was made after the Constitution, and it manipulated the Constitution to fit what it did. The Constitution did not form our money. Like our money habits and our money system, that was not formed by the Constitution. Most of our money system with the feds, with the Federal Reserve, isn't according to our Constitution, guys. That's very confusing for people. How can we have something that doesn't fit in with our Constitution, but it's how we money? It's not right. And it's why when things go bad, Social Security, who is our poorest of poor, guys, our public services like Social Security, why is that the first to go? Why aren't... I have a question. Do Congress get paid in a shutdown? Yeah. The National Constitution Center says, why do politicians and judges get paid during a government shutdown? Who gets paid? It had more than 800,000 names of people who got furloughed back in the 2013 shutdown. That's crazy, guys. 800,000 people. They'll eventually get paid, though. Don't worry. So one exception is the executive branch, who gets a paycheck at all times. The president shall at all stated times receive for his services a compensation, which shall neither be increased nor diminished during the period for which he should have been elected. Over in the legislative branch, supportive staff for Congress would be affected. During a funding gap, pay for congressional employees would not be dispersed if there is no appropriation to fund legislative branch activities. But members of Congress will still get paychecks. Why? Their employees that do all of their work won't get paid, but they'll get paid. Don't worry, guys. They'll get paid. So, that's crazy. Implementing a debt ceiling is practical, allowing the U.S. Treasury to easily issue bonds without having Congress approve it each and every time the federal government needs to raise money. I disagree. I think that each and every time the federal government needs to raise money, Congress needs to approve it. We elect Congress so that they can make our bids. They can do our bidding, right? Well, if we need to raise money as a government, as a country, then our Congress, who we elected, needs to approve it. It is a cumbersome process. That's what you're in there for, guys. You go and sit around a couple days a year and you push buttons with a stick and you think that you're like hard workers. I know a guy right now that works security all night long, 15 hours. 15 hours of security, dangerous security, guys. You know what he gets? Not a darn thing. So, Congress is not important, nor are they more special than anybody else. Why should they get paid? With the debt ceiling, the boundaries are in place for a more efficient monetary approval process. However, the debt ceiling has been notoriously fluid and raised a few times, raising questions on whether it's effective as a tool to ensure fiscal responsibility. The U.S. has reached record high levels of debt over time. But the pros, it holds the nation's finances in check. But does it really hold the nation's finances in check if it's always fluid and raised? It can be used to fund federal operations, but it can still be used to fund federal operations being approved by the Congress every single time. It improves efficiency in the government's ability to fund obligations, including Social Security and Medicare benefits. So, the debt ceiling does not make these obligations able to be funded. It just improves the efficiency. So we have something in place that our country is fighting over that can mean that our soldiers aren't going to get paid, that can mean our Social Security, our most vulnerable people won't get paid, but it improves the efficiency in the government. You guys, they're lying. These are lies, and we need to be able to call them out as such. It's part of your learning. The government lies to you. And if we can call those lies out and work with them, we can make money off them because that's how they're making money. They twist the truth and lie to us. So the cons, it can be easily raised. So it's not really holding anything in check. It lowers the U.S. credit rating, increases its cost of debt. Controversy over whether the debt ceiling is even constitutional. So there have been a number of showdowns over the debt ceiling, some of which have led to government shutdowns. The conflict is usually between the White House and Congress, and the debt ceiling is used as leverage to push budgetary agendas. For example, in 95, the Republican members of Congress whose views were vocalized by then House Speaker Newt Gingrich. You guys, you can blame Newt Gingrich for all this mean talk in the government. Newt Gingrich was an evil man who talked really evil about other people. He talked ugly. And now that's how everybody thinks that they have to talk about other. It's that no bars held, I'm going to beat you with my words type of government. We used to have in our government something where they wouldn't go there. It was kind of like professional. It was government. It was not, I don't want to say it was like higher class, but it was, guys. When you're in the government, you are not a peon. You are not a peasant running around the streets. You represent our country. You represent our government. So you shouldn't be a vile man calling people names and, doing things like that. You should probably be a normal person. And by normal, I mean like not mean. And now our politics are mean. If you look at the way that the Republicans talk to each other, you can only imagine the things that they talk about other people on TV, behind their backs, everywhere. Guys, listen. I'll give you two examples of Republicans. You listen to how Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, the future nominees of the Republican Party for president, talk about each other. Just look. I don't care. This is about money, guys. And I don't have any preference over Republican or Democrat. I don't. I just wish somebody would run our darn country the way it needs to be ran so the poor people aren't poor and rich people aren't rich. That's all that's happening is rich is getting richer, poor is getting poorer, and nobody is taking care of us. So I don't care who's in charge, but I don't want them to be mean, talking mean about everybody. I don't need a Donald Trump and a Newt Gingrich. I don't need them in there talking ugly. It makes our country more angry. We're already angry enough. We're going through a lot as a country. And when you have somebody in power that talks very ugly about ugly things and about other people, it creates an environment of ugly. And we already have a gun violence problem in this country and other violence, not just gun violence. We have all violence problems in this country. And so it doesn't matter who's in control. Just let them be in control with caring and kindness. If we tried that out in America, it might work, guys. So, in 1995, Newt Gingrich used the threat of refusing to allow an increase in the debt ceiling to negotiate increased government spending cuts. Then President Bill Clinton refused to make the cuts, which led to a shutdown of the government. The White House and Congress eventually agreed on a balanced budget with modest spending cuts and tax increases. So they did all of that, but we're still where we are, guys. We're still in the same problem. So with a balanced budget and modest spending cuts, they didn't really do anything. They raised the ceiling. Newt Gingrich didn't get anything. And the White House, by refusing, didn't get anything. It's like at a stalemate, guys. Our country's at a money stale point. So, our country is. That's because 98% of us are poor. Not all of us are there, though. So, President Barack Obama faced similar issues during his 2 terms as president. In 2011, debt ceiling crisis, Republicans in Congress demanded deficit reductions to approve an increase in the debt ceiling. During this time, U.S. Treasury debt was stripped of its AAA rating by Standard & Poor's, a rating it held for more than 70 years. In 2013, the government was shut down for 16 days after conservative Republicans attempted to defund the Affordable Care Act by leveraging the debt ceiling. An agreement to suspend the debt limit has passed within a day. Oh, it was passed within a day, which was then the Treasury was estimated to run out of money. So they barely passed this, guys, after 6 days, 16 days of shutdown. The debt ceiling was raised again in 2014, 15, and early 17, with U.S. debt exceeding $20 trillion for the first time in September 2017. Then, President Donald Trump signed a bill extending the debt ceiling to December 8th of 2017. The ceiling was later suspended for 13 months as part of a bill enacted in February of 2018. The ceiling came into effect and was increased again in March 2019. When the U.S. government debt topped $22 trillion. In August of 2019, then President Trump signed the Bipartisan Budget Act of 2019, which suspended the debt ceiling through July 31st of 2021. That was during the pandemic time. Legislation also lifted spending caps on federal agency budgets while ensuring that the government could pay its bills in the short term. Suspending the ceiling in this manner eliminated the risk of default for another 2 years, increasing spending to $320 billion for the 2020 and 21 fiscal years. The debt ceiling was once again raised to $31.4 trillion in December of 2021. And I don't know why they didn't mention it, guys. I don't know why right here during this shutdowns, they talked about how the government was shut down for 16 days in 2013. In 2018, where is it? They don't really mention it. In 2018, Donald Trump, when was Donald Trump he had the longest closure. It was Donald Trump. I think it was in 2018. Okay, let's see. Yep. The United States federal government shut down from midnight on December 22nd of 2018 until January 25th. 35 days was the longest government shutdown. And this one was because Trump's demand for $5.7 billion in federal funds for a U.S.-Mexico border wall. In 2018, the Senate unanimously passed an appropriations bill without wall funding, and the bill appeared likely to be approved by the Republican-controlled House and Trump. And then Trump faced heavy criticism from his people, and he promised to build the wall, and he would not sign anything. Well, they did a stopgap bill, and then they blocked it by Senate because of a filibuster. And then in January of 2019, representatives elected in November took office, giving the Democrats a majority in the House. And they voted to approve the appropriation bills that had previously passed the Senate unanimously. So, there you go, guys. It all happened even after 35 days of shutdown. And do you know what happened with that 35 days of shutdown? Nobody got what they wanted. Nothing ever. You guys, when are people going to learn that you can't manipulate people? You can't threaten people. It doesn't work. But I don't know why they didn't mention it here about being closed for 35 days, because they mentioned the 16 days. That's weird. Newly appointed House Speaker's effect on the debt ceiling. Some economists and Wall Street analysts believe the recent election of California Republican Kevin McCarthy to House Speaker raises the prospect that lawmakers may vote against lifting the debt ceiling later this year, increasing the possibility of the U.S. defaulting on its debts. When was this written? In January. Okay. So, as part of their support to install McCarthy, conservative faction Republicans have indicated that they would vote against raising the debt ceiling without significant federal spending reductions, setting the stage for political gridlock that could destabilize the financial system. So, you know what I'm really wondering? What are the significant federal spending reductions that the GOP want? What budget cuts do GOP want for ceiling. These are the cuts. Oh, it's a video. We don't want to watch a video. Oh. Let's see what they plan to do. Oh. House Republicans want to cut federal spending. And they just passed a bill that would do that. But they don't want to cut defense spending. They don't want to cut veterans' health care spending. They don't want to cut Medicare or Social Security. Their bill, which would raise the country's borrowing limit for a year in exchange for a decade of spending reductions, does not include many specifics. It achieves most of its savings with spending caps for discretionary spending, the part of the budget allocated annually by Congress that is not automatic like Social Security payments. But it doesn't say what discretionary programs should be cut and which ones should be spared. Well, that's weird, huh? I wonder what they want to cut. That's why they're not saying, because they want to cut them. The military is not protected. Border security remains a top priority. I don't know, guys. What would they cut then? If he says they don't want to cut Medicare or Social Security, they don't, all that they could, what else is there, guys? Food stamps. I don't know. I can't, TANF. Temporary assistance for needy families. That's the only thing I could, what else could they cut? Unless they cut their pay. I don't see you cutting that. There you go. Health and Human Services. 51%, you guys. They want to cut education by 51%? You guys, are you looking at this? This is what they want to cut? Oh, no. Wow. That would be horrible. It would be horrible for every single one of these guys. Education losing half, guys, over half. Human and Health Services, that's welfare. That's for our most needy children, guys. Housing and urban development. This is for housing for our most needy people. I understand people not wanting to give free money, but why can't people understand our most needy? I don't get that. A default on government debt, which sits at almost $31.5 trillion, would send shockwaves through global financial markets as confidence in U.S. borrowers falls. Credit analysis firm Moody's Analytics predicts that a 4-month default would shave around 4% from our gross domestic product, our GDP. See stocks prices fall by a third and result in companies slashing nearly 6 million jobs. Furthermore, its analysis reveals that a default on U.S. Treasury bonds could lead to a downturn similar to the 2007-2009 Great Recession. I guess letting us go into default would be a good indication of a recession that we see is starting already. That would be a good way to break it to us, right? Like, hey guys, we're in recession and we're also defaulting on our debt, and we're also cutting nearly 6 million jobs, and also our military is not getting paid, guys, but go to work every day. What? So a breakdown in the perceived trustworthiness of U.S. Treasuries or a credit freeze would almost certainly lead to sharp falls in the greenback and an exodus of U.S. investments by foreign investors. Even coming close to default has the potential to unnerve financial markets. In 2011, then President Obama and House Republicans narrowly averted reaching the debt ceiling, a crisis that saw stock prices plunge and volatility spike, prompting credit agency S&P Global Ratings to downgrade the U.S. credit rating for the first time. Furthermore, the crisis also dented consumer confidence and small business optimism, as well as creating economic uncertainty. A U.S. debt default would impede the government from carrying out critical functions such as issuing Social Security benefits, maintaining national defense, that means paying our military, and adequately funding the public health system. Wow. Yellen's warning to Congress. In mid-January 2023, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reiterated the importance of Congress raising the debt ceiling to avoid a potential default. Failure to meet the government's obligations would cause irreparable harm to the U.S. economy, the livelihoods of all Americans, and global financial stability, she wrote. I respectfully urge Congress to act promptly to protect the full faith and credit of the United States. Despite the ongoing political brinkmanship in Washington over the debt ceiling and spending cuts, it remains unlikely that the U.S. will default on its debts. President Biden successfully made deals with Republicans in 2021 to pass critical legislation, most notably the $1.2 trillion infrastructure package. Therefore, it's likely that he will negotiate spending reduction measures with House Republicans in exchange for raising the debt ceiling. Insights and Market Perspectives site AGF projects a 60% chance of Congress striking an 11th hour deal to avoid a default, indicating the likelihood of macroeconomic uncertainty in the months ahead. The debt ceiling is $31.4 trillion as of October 2022. It was raised to this level under President Biden in 2021. How many times has it been raised? According to the U.S. Department of Treasury, the debt ceiling has been raised, extended, or revised 78 separate times since 1960. This occurred 49 times under Republican presidents and 29 times under 49 times under Republican presidents and 29 times under Democratic presidents. Hitting the debt limit and failing to pay interest payments to bondholders would have grave economic consequences. They should also say, hitting the debt limit and failing to pay our Social Security and military would have grave human consequences. The U.S. government would be in default, lowering its credit rating and increasing the cost of its debt. They would say, the American would be in default, lowering its money-having ability and increasing the cost of its life. This would throw the U.S. economy into a tailspin. The debt ceiling is the limit set on the amount of debt that the U.S. government is allowed to incur. As of October 2022, the U.S. national debt was more than $31 trillion and rising. The debt ceiling was created during World War I to regulate U.S. government spending and to keep the U.S. government fiscally responsible. Since then, the debt ceiling has been raised or revised 78 times to avoid the possibility of default and keep the U.S. economy running, with no signs of Congress turning to other options despite questions over the debt ceiling's effectiveness. Well, you know what's crazy, guys? They say it is 2023. And they say since 1960, which is 63 years ago, right? Am I wrong? We're talking about today is 2023, and in 1960 was 63 years ago. But in 63 years, the debt ceiling has been raised or revised 78 times. In 63 years, I would pretty much say it's a moot point, guys. It's moot. It gets raised more than once a year on average. That doesn't even make sense, you guys. It has been raised by 49 times under Republican presidents and 29 times under Democratic presidents. That is a lot of times, guys. It's more than one time a year. If we do the math, this isn't just weird. It's ridiculous. So they have their little advertisement down here for Vanguard and all of the things they sell. You can check it out if you're interested, but we were here to learn. So the debt ceiling, guys, it is wild. It's wildly important to understand, too, because it might not affect you this time. But what happens when 10 more years down the road and we've already extended this thing another 78 times? I don't know. So I wanted to show you guys something else. So the government's this was the most recent one was 35 days. This was Donald Trump in 2018. It was the longest pause in operations in history. And you guys have to remember, when the government shut down, things like military pay doesn't get paid, Social Security could not get paid out. There's a lot of things that don't get paid. So what happened after that, guys? Over those 35 days, the S&P 500, which is the market with our biggest 500 businesses, remember, It returned 10%, guys. So the government was shut down for 35 days. And during that time, it returned 10%. And it was positive during half of those shutdowns. So if the government shut down 20 times, 10 of those times, the S&P 500 was positive. So why do government shutdowns affect the stock market, guys? Because when people aren't getting paid and things are going awry, guess who's still making moves? That's right. The people with money, the people on the stock market. Just because the military isn't getting paid, I don't think military men are the majority of the stock market, guys. I don't think that the people on Social Security are the majority of the stock market. So do you see how we're talking about money, right? It affects everybody on the bottom that has nothing to do with it. They never have a say in it. They're on Social Security. They're in the military. They're working their butts off. But it affects them when things go awry. Oh, I lost my connection. OBS. Womp, womp, womp. I might go back to Twitch. I had more viewers with Twitch. This is crazy. Am I disconnected? Can you look on yours and see? It said I had a OBS disconnection, but it's not looking like it's disconnected over here. It's still green. Just a little technical difficulties, my friends. Don't leave. You know, okay, I'm still live. You guys know they do this to throw you off. They tell you OBS is shut off because they don't want you talking about money. I was telling you guys, you could get rich, but we can't bring everybody. So this is a small group, guys. You got to get into the group before it's all full, before the debt ceiling of our group is hit. Seriously, though, guys, this is why. So we know why we care about the debt ceiling. We know why they care about the debt ceiling. Now let us go back over here and look at what we did yesterday. This is my Investopedia simulator. If you guys have never seen it, it lets you practice trading with free money. You could do crypto. You could do stocks. It gives you an account value, and it lets you track your annual return, today's change, and all of your performance history. So you could see how you're doing on the stock market. These are things we bought yesterday just to see how it worked. It looks like it worked. Look at us. We made $4.73 today off of these. How fun. It's great, guys. So this was just to get started. You guys, it's a game. We can all get on here and we can have a war, a money war. Look at Economista. Who is that? Scalzo. Yeah. When it says Squealer D is the top player, look how much money they have. They might have been playing this thing since it came out. But our trade histories here, we bought 10 of Anheuser-Busch. We bought 5 Fiskars and an Apple yesterday. It looks like everything went through. It just takes a little bit longer than the one I was used to. So we will practice with this next week and try a couple other ones. I'm going to pull up a couple different ones for us so we can see which ones we like better. But I do like the idea of this having a competition. I like a good competition. So this worked. We'll go back to this on Monday, guys. That is your homework for today. It's the weekend. So find yourself an account. Get an account on Investopedia. Get one on Thinkorswim. Get one on every one of them so that when we come back, we can do some paper trading. So let's us just look at the news really quick, and then we are going to call it a day because we're already at 51 minutes. I want to keep this about an hour so it's easy for people to ingest. We're just going to look at the news real quick. You guys know how I get worked up. Consumer spending up more than expected in April. Inflation picks up. Oh, well, that's great. Spending more money and inflation goes up. Yay, us. Finances and mental health. How to stop stressing over your money. Well, you could come to this class, this money team, and you can learn about money and you get rid of some of your stressors, huh? Oh, Costco reports earnings miss, declining sales despite increased traffic. That's because their stuff got more expensive. People love to go to Costco to look around, but guess what? Guess what? They can't afford to buy anything there. The last time I went to Costco, I think I bought one thing. Guys, it was so ridiculous. Even their apples are expensive now. Remember, you used to be able to go into Costco and buy a nice little clamshell full of apples, 12 apples or 8 apples, whatever it was, for $5. The last time I went in there, which was like 6 months ago, them darn apples was $12.99 or $10.99. I couldn't believe it. I go buy a cheap bag of apples at Safeway for $3.99. Couldn't do it. Anyway, Costco, you raised your prices, and let's be honest, you got a lot more crap. Raise your hand if you think Costco is the new expensive dollar store, because you used to be able to go in Costco and get brands that normally you couldn't get wholesale. We're talking good brands like blenders and coffee makers and knives and dishes that you never could get. You could get a set of pans at Costco for $200, but they're part of a bigger set of pans that you could only buy on a website for $1,500. Like, they were really bringing deals to the average man who could afford to get into Costco. Well, let me tell you what. As soon as Costco started accepting SNAP food benefits, they went downhill. You know why? It had nothing to do with the SNAP clients. It had to do with money. They can make more money off of government benefits than actually making good deals with good companies so that they could sell high quality items. Now their items are the same quality as Walmart. Costco and Sam's Club, they're the same now. So goodbye, Costco. I wouldn't buy anything from you either. I can see why you have declining sales. Perhaps you should hire me and I'll tell you how you can improve your sales. I will. I'll tell you how to improve your sales, Costco. Give me a ring. I will be Squealer D Consultants. The D is for the dollar because that is what I'll make you. In the AI war, NVIDIA is the only arms dealer. That's right, guys. NVIDIA is crazy with the AI. The first thing that's going to ever attack us and kill us will be made by NVIDIA. I said it here first. They're probably going to come to my house. The AI thing that attacks the first people is going to come to my house now because I said it. NVIDIA. They're doing it. They're making AI that's like, it could do with games, with gaming, NVIDIA. Oh man, you guys. And I hate NVIDIA. I'm mad at NVIDIA still. I have an NVIDIA and I wanted to throw it out the window for like 3 months with Call of Duty. So, but when it comes to AI, guys, NVIDIA, they're doing something crazy over there. Netflix will be stronger after crackdown. Guys, let me know in the comments how many of you canceled your Netflix yesterday when you got that email saying it's $7 for other people to watch something. Okay. So I share a Netflix, or I used to. I'm no longer a Netflix watcher, guys. Netflix almost made me never watch them again when they made Cuties, guys. That was bad enough. I watched it. Don't judge me. I saw it. I saw it with my own 2 eyes, and it was horrible. I would never allow my 10 or 11-year-old daughter to be in the movie called Cuties. Ever, 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 ever. And I almost stopped watching Netflix altogether, even for their dumb old cartoons and stuff. But you know what? I said, everybody deserves to make a movie. And if you want to make a gross movie, who am I to be the judge of that? But now Netflix wants to charge $7 every time somebody logs in. Every time. That's not in your home. So if you have a child that you share, let's say you share your child with your spouse, with your ex, and your child has Netflix at your house. You bought 4 Netflix accounts for you and your 3 children. But your children go to their pop's house, right? They go to pop's house every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, guess what? They can't take their Netflix to pop's house no more. Even though it's their account, you pay for them each an account. If they log on to their account at their pop's house, because it's a whole different IP address, that's $7 every time they log in. Yeah, that's right, $7. So if you want to pay for unreasonable things, you keep paying for Netflix. But me, I'm going to go ahead this time and say Netflix can burn. They can burn and crash because that's bad business practices. Not everybody lives in a traditional house style. Not everybody lives in the same IP address, but they may be a shared family. I share a phone with somebody that's in another state. So what happens if they told me that all my calls were long distance because the phone was bought in a different state? How would that make sense, guys? What if AT&T started charging you every time you used your phone out of the state that it was in, that you had purchased it in? You would change phone companies, right? Well, change movie companies. Netflix has raised their prices. They have cracked down now on sharing. And I don't mean, it's one thing if you pay for one login and then you let everybody in the world log in on it. But if you pay for 4 logins and you let 4 people log in on it, those 4 people should be able to log in wherever they want. What happens if you go on vacation? You can't take your Netflix? Well, then why pay $15 a month for it? Or $18 or whatever it is? I don't even know because I don't pay for it. So Tuesday, they say, oh my goodness, a stronger business to a more loyal subscriber base. They're wrong. You want to know who their subscriber base is and who gives them loyal business? I'm going to tell you, it's the kids. It's the children. And the children, you guys want to know what the children do? They move about. They go to grandparents' house. They go to daycare. And if they can't take their Netflix, why have Netflix? I'll get a Disney account and let them watch Disney at their daycare, right? It doesn't make any sense. Where does it say about the $7? I couldn't believe it. $7. Yeah, nearly half of the respondents indicated they'd be willing to pay the $7.99 fee for remote users, while 70% said they'd be open to signing up for the $6.99 a tier plan. So they want $7.99 for remote users. Not just $7.99. No, thank you. No, thank you, Netflix. Take your crappy Netflix movies. I can't even think of one good Netflix movie right now anyway. McCarthy says he spoke with Trump about U.S. debt ceiling talks. That's good. Good thing you talked to Trump, man. Whew. I was worried there for a minute. He spoke briefly with former President Donald Trump about the debt ceiling negotiations. Oh, man. Republicans should not make a deal on the debt ceiling unless they get everything they want. Do not fold. This is the advice from your former president, America. Republicans should not make a deal on the debt ceiling unless they get everything they want. Don't fold. Doesn't that sound like a government? Doesn't that sound like people who are there for our best interest, who are thinking about people with Social Security? Man, if I were a Republican, this would make me not be a Republican anymore. Talking this way about our soldiers, Republicans shouldn't make a deal unless they get everything they want. Is that the advice you'd give a wife and a husband who couldn't come to agreements? Don't fold. You get everything you want. Like, that's not how relationships work. And if our government thinks like this, why are they our government? I don't know, guys. I have no hope in our current system of Democrats and Republicans. We need a new party. We need no party. We need people. We need actual people, not politicians. We need some real people in our government because nobody should ever tell anybody, don't take a deal unless you get everything you want. Not in the government. Not when it's a two-party system. How? When you have a two-party system, how could you ever get everything you want? Unless you're taking advantage of the other people. It doesn't work. So that's it. That was enough for me to end it. It was enough news for me today. Hope you all had a great time and learned a little bit of something about the debt ceiling and why it's important to you. And I will see you guys all Monday. Monday morning, early as I can wake these little peepers up. I will be there, so you be there too. or be there or be square, right? See you guys next time. Have a great day and a great weekend.